Chapter 14 of Witch Hat Atelier is one of those chapters that looks gentle on the surface. Apple trees, magic practice, talk about the future, but by the time you reach the final page, you realize the whole chapter has been quietly tightening a knot. Because this chapter ends with Qifrey alone in a tower at night, holding Coco's tampered ink pot saying, "Oh, how have I waited, longing for this day to come." And everything that happens before that moment, every lesson, every dream the girls share, every word Qifrey says to them, you're watching it knowing he's been waiting for something we still don't fully understand. That tension is what makes chapter 14 work. So let's walk through it. Let's talk about Tartah's suspicion. The chapter doesn't open at the atelier. It opens back in the city of Kal, with Tartah, Mr. Noah's grandson, sitting on the steps outside of his grandfather's shop. If you were with me in chapter 13, you know what happened. Qifrey did something to Mr. Noah's memory. Tartah saw the blinding light from upstairs, and now he's sitting there troubled, asking himself, what if Qifrey is the reason Grandpa doesn't remember? This opening does something really important. It plants a seed of doubt right at the top of the chapter before we even get to the warmth and teaching that's about to follow. The story is making sure we don't forget that the question of who Qifrey really is hasn't been answered yet. And every generous, patient thing he does in the rest of this chapter, you're watching it with that question still sitting underneath. Basically, the question is still unanswered. Now, we shift to Qifrey's atelier. He's standing outside on the hillside with Coco, Tetia, Richeh, near a small wild apple tree, and Coco is practicing the grasping wind sigil. She drew it big on purpose because the smaller ones barely made the leaves flutter. But this time, instead of plucking a single apple, she uproots the entire tree. It's funny, but it's also teaching us something crucial about Coco. When something doesn't work, her instinct isn't to pull back. It is to push harder. That's the same instinct that led her to trace a forbidden spell back in chapter 1. It's the same one that got her to the top of the Dada range. It's also who she is. Tetia steps in and makes a connection. When you pick an apple by hand, you twist it at the stem. So why not angle the pulling sigil the same way? Qifrey calls her an able teacher. And yes, Tetia lights up. Master Tetia. Say it again. Say it again. She needs to be seen. She needs to be acknowledged. And she needs acknowledgement. That's Tetia's character for you. And then Agott walks up, grabs an apple, and immediately challenges Tetia. Do you really have time to be advising others, she says. If you knew how far you still have to go, you might want to prioritize your own studies. In the span of 2 exchanges, the story has shown you exactly who these 4 girls are. Coco pushes harder when things fail. Tetia teaches and craves validation. Agott measures everything and everyone, including herself. That's the whole chapter in one scene. Let's talk about the 5 tests. The conversation shifts to the tests. Coco asks if there are others besides the consent of the crown, and Richeh answers immediately, yeah, 5 of them, 5 whole dumb pointless tests. Her face says everything before Qifrey even speaks. She hates being told what to draw. Qifrey explains that witches of old created these tests as adventures in the outside world, a way to make apprentices want to take them instead of suffer through them. And then we get the full breakdown. The consent of the crown. Coco already passed this. It's the right to choose your teacher. The next test. The sincerity of the shield. Permission to cast spells in public. The third test is the query of the quiver. Approval to attempt the librarian's trial. The 4th test is the goodwill of grace, graduation from your teacher's side. The 5th test is the words of the wise, the ability to take on apprentices of your own. As we know, if you've been watching the anime, Arugio, Qifrey's best friend, and Watchful Eye stopped at test 4. Qifrey went all the way to test 5. And what makes this moment land is what happens next, because each girl responds, and every response is a window straight into who they are. Let's talk about this. Let's call this what I'm about to cover: 4 girls, 4 futures. Now, Tetia begins. Tetia already has it all designed. She wants to travel, use magic to help people, and hear words of things in every language around the world. She says, happiness for 2 from a single spell, 2 birds with 1 stone, 2 knees with 1 deed. And she's already designed her witch hat. 2 points to match her 2 pigtails. She didn't just tell us her dream, she showed us she's been living inside of it for a long time. Richeh responds, refuses outright. If being a proper grown-up means having to do stuff you don't want to do, then I'd rather stay just as I am, or just the way I am. That's not childish. That's her response. That's how she feels. That's a girl who values her own will above the entire system built around her. Now, Agott chimes in. Agott comes from the house of Arkalum, a family that traces all the way back to one of the original apprentices of the 3 wise ones. The head of the family has always served as a librarian in the Tower of Tomes. She's not just driven, she's carrying a legacy that was placed on her before she had any say in it. And she says it plainly. I'm going to take all of the tests as soon as I can. In fact, I'd be happy if I could grow up right now. Yes, this is Agott's response. Now, Coco is different. Tetia asks what kind of witch she wants to become, and Coco says, the things I have to accomplish have already been decided for me. So for now, I guess I'll just focus on learning to basically use more and more spells. She's not dreaming, she's on a mission, and that distinction between dreaming and mission is the line that separates Coco from every other girl on that hill at the moment. So let's talk about Coco's vision, something that's notable in chapter 14. Qifrey tells her, draw so that you may remember so that you may use. The power you imbue yourself thus will prove an ally that never betrays you. Let's say that one more time. Qifrey tells her, draw so that you may remember so that you may use. The power you imbue yourself thus will prove an ally that never betrays. And then something happens. The light around Coco goes dark. She's pulled into a vision, a dream, or is she pulled into something like another space while on that hill? Now, what's happening at this moment? I'm going to tell you, when I saw this on the panel, I stayed on the panel for a long time trying to figure it out. But she's pulled almost into a space. It could be a vision or a dream. And her mother, petrification, plays out again. Every voice that has ever condemned her in layers. Her mother, magic's not meant for normal people. Agott, speaking words from the Labyrinth arc. All of those things are your fault, Coco. Sir Estes from the River Rescue arc. We've all got things we're capable of and things we're not. And then the brim cap appears at the ink bottle she's drowning inside, and it speaks directly to her. That is what you get for chasing after magic. All the tragedies that occur, they're on your shoulders. Now, here's the question the chapter leaves open. Was this just a dream? She wakes up in her bed later that night in a sweat, but the vision was specific, targeted. The brim cap was inside of it, speaking to her directly. And we know the brim cap already tampered with her ink bottle or her ink pot. So what else did they do to Coco that we haven't seen yet? That's the real question. What else have they done to her? What does she do after she wakes up? She sits up in her bed, then goes to her desk and starts drawing again. Draw so that I may remember. This is her thinking this, remembering Qifrey's words to her on the hill. Draw so that I may remember. Remember so that I may use. How much more will I need to learn before I'm able to save my mother? This is her thinking this and saying some of this in dialogue. That's her answer to everything the vision threw at her. No words. The pen. That's where she went to. She went to sitting at her desk and drawing. So let's talk a little bit about Qifrey's secret, because Qifrey is quite interesting in chapter 14. So this chapter does not end with Coco. It ends with Qifrey, basically. He's alone in a tower at night, closing a brick enclosure around him. He holds up Coco's ink pot, the one the brim cap tampered with, the one he quietly took from her back in chapter 13. And he says, "Oh, how I've waited, longing for this day to come." The story has been doing this since chapter 1, giving us a teacher who is warm, careful, and clearly devoted to these girls while making sure we don't know what he's working toward. He waited until they were asleep, or he thought they were asleep. So he's alone with the ink pot. He's been waiting for something specific to happen, or he's been waiting for something specific like lead, and we know that. What does he need from it? What is it he's trying to get from the brim cap? What does he know that we don't know at this moment? If you are listening along on this video, if you're not reading the manga and you're following my videos to enjoy the manga, this is kind of where we are. What does he know that we don't? That's chapter 14 of Witch Hat Atelier for you in a nutshell. 5 tests that reveal how the world is structured for girls who show us in one afternoon exactly who they are, what they're carrying. One vision that raises a question about Coco we can't get answered yet. And one closing shot that puts everything we thought we understood about Qifrey back under examination. This is a chapter where the depth starts to show. The surface looks like a story about girls learning magic, but underneath it, every character is moving towards something, and we're just starting to see what that is. If you made it to the end of this video, do not forget to like, subscribe for more manga breakdowns, and comment to let me know which of the 4 girls do you see yourself in most right now. I'll meet you at the next Pointed Hat discussion. Above all, thanks for stopping by and watching.